Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru, India. This session will run over the next 90 minutes, including Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. I would now like to welcome Swamy, our speaker for today's session. He is an aspirant software architect and currently works at Applied Information Sciences. He loves to learn about new technologies. But for now, I will hand over to Swamy to begin the session. Over to you, Swamy.
Thank you so much, Rashmita. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. This is the series AZ-204 hands-on series, which we are discussing. The First, let me start with the MS Learn module. So this MS Learn modules, whatever is available here, it's a pretty extensive documentation. And I strongly suggest going through these modules to get our fundamentals as well as the syllabus, whatever we have as part of the syllabus which has been outlined here. And very key and important points will be here. And if you go and compare what is there here, develop Azure Compute Solution. So that has been divided. Like even though if you see the top five where we got the split, but if we go deep into these each and every one, we will be from now onwards we'll be more focusing towards how we are correlating our demos to which particular MS Learn module. So we'll be doing that. So today's one is the durable. The other 212 we have already covered in our previous 11 sessions. We have covered quite a few of the first block. And now we saw this events, triggers, and connect to functions. We did with Visual Studio Code and with Portal, we did quite a few things, how to create these functions. Now, today's focus will be purely on the implement durable functions. Okay, we'll be focusing on this implement durable function. That being said, first let me come back to this one, where we will have the entire source code. So all the source code of this will be available under the speaker series 2022. That's the GitHub repository where you will find everything. So please keep this handy, go grab it. Want to try, you can try. And actually this durable functions is a very demanding solution. Uh, so I couldn't update this, but I'm going to do it by tonight and I'll send it. Whatever I can do, I did it till here, but I'm going to update. But we are going to discuss a lot. And I remember I'll keep a note of all the things, whatever we are discussing, and I'll put it step by step. And we are not doing hello world of durable function and tell that yes, we did durable function, done for the day. Now we are going to get deep into the weeds, even though it's a simple solution, but we will do it everything from scratch. Okay, it's that one. So please keep this URL, which is very specific to today's session. So the entire source code is here. First, let me walk through that, and then we'll slowly start and we'll compare and start discussing one by one, either from here or from uh, Azure documentation, Azure durable functions. I'll keep this also handy so that some of the times we will switch between, the documentation AZ-204 as well as full documentation. Let's flip between both. Okay. Without further delay, let me go here. This is my virtual machine in Azure. And here we have here we have this the fully baked solution. I would like to, we'll recreate this. I would like to give a quick introduction kind of thing before we jump into and discuss on that. So let's spend 1 minute time to see how we will be able to see the output. Okay, first I'll walk you through the solution. This is the core, which has got a couple of interfaces and couple of one entity and couple of data transfer objects. So the request DTO, as in every solution, will send a request to that. So instead of sending number of parameters, we are sending uh, as a DTO. So that's a request DTO, and this will be the response DTO. Whatever is coming out of this durable function will be this response DTO, which will have success message and list of weather. And entity is weather data, where we have location, temperature in Celsius, temperature in Fahrenheit, humidity, comfort index, and created date time, just to know that when we executed and when was this object got constructed. And quite a few of the interfaces. One is temperature converter, where we convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius and Celsius to Fahrenheit. And we have one more uh, interface which will convert, get the comfort index. And we have weather data service. This we are simulating to getting the weather data from external sources. And this is the weather report, display weather report, which I'm not using because I used it in my console application just to test the library, whatever I was writing will work. So that's the core. And coming back to the weather utility library, you can see that the weather report, I'm not using the weather report. Let's not waste time on that. So the temperature converter does this conversion, uh, Fahrenheit to Celsius, Celsius to Fahrenheit, and temperature utility. That's the one which is used to get the comfort index of uh, based on whatever the Fahrenheit temperature which we give, and humidity percentage. And here the weather data service, what I'm doing is I'm simulating as if I'm going to some external weather API or reading from the database, whatever it is. So I'm bringing in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Kochi, Salem, and Vishakhapatnam. So some of these places, locations, I'm bringing in hypothetical scenario. Don't get me wrong, like 19 degrees is impossible or 23 degrees is impossible, but let's go ahead with these hypothetical numbers. Let's assume the temperature Celsius is like this, and humidity, I just gave it some random numbers. Okay, that's the solution. What you can do is a nice tool which I like it in Enterprise Edition is this solution map, which clearly shows that what DLL, what is the number of classes which have and who depends on whom. That's a pretty nice diagram which I always like it. We can still further go and expand these individual sections also. So that gives us what is available in that. See that in that we have only weather utility starter function. You can see that icon. And if I expand this activity function, so it shows that get comfort index that has got this temperature. Uh, it is using that temperature utility. This okay, the interface for this one. So we are, if you see this, the temperature utility, I temperature utility. So you can figure it out from this. This method will use the I temperature utility and get Celsius to Fahrenheit is using temperature converter, this guy, and weather data service. These two folks are using this weather data services. So we can get deep into that to find out what is the mix of classes and who uses what and how this entire solution has been built. So we'll get this one. Okay. So let's start with this, and we can do in two modes. If I can, if I want to show the full blown this thing, it will save a lot of time, but I'm not feeling good with that. So let's go ahead and do the full full cycle. We'll develop everything from scratch. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Let me open this table, queues, uh, and this one. Okay, let's start with this. I will come to Orchestrator. We are going to develop this, guys. Whatever the next 5 minutes or 4 minutes which I'm spending here is worth, we'll definitely come back and we will create each one of this one by one. Okay, that will be pretty much a action-packed episode. But let's see this for 2 minutes. Let's spend, and then we'll start creating this entire solution in next 1 hour or 1 hour 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it's going to take. Let's take that time and we'll recreate everything from scratch. So there will be something, the starter function, and we'll discuss how to create the starter functions and all these things we are going to see. And also we are going to deploy this to Azure and see that how it works. We're not going to leave anything. We are going to do everything. Okay. So no, I don't want to save this, cancel that. Let me come here. This is the post one. So I'm passing the body. I'm passing the name as Srivaru, and I just click on send. So it goes and it hits this durable function and it does the workflow, whatever it has to do. We'll see and we'll create this workflow and everything. But let's quickly come and see that it has started here and it is fitting a lot of logs, retrieving the DTO from the request and everything. It is it's showing all those logs, and then it gives us quite a few URLs. Okay, these URLs are getting generated. Uh, those URLs are getting generated by this function over here, and that HTTP function in the starter. Okay, create check status. So this is the utility function which will help us create an HTTP response that is useful for checking the status of specified instance. Okay, so that guy is going to give you set of URLs, and those URLs are here. We will redo this everything one by one, folks. But just hold your breath for few minutes. Now this is a very specific instance. We can go and check that. So this is the input which I have passed, the data transfer object weather request DTO, and this is the weather response DTO. It says that success is true, and the message all is well, and the location Bangalore, temperature Celsius, Fahrenheit, and humidity, comfort index, and date time created. If I re-execute this, if I stop this, and again I'll re-execute this. So we will be always hitting the starter function. Okay, we'll be always hitting the starter function. We are going to create everything step by step. Please do not worry. Now, if I hit this, because that has got a specific instance, and that was a previous call. If you see that the UTC is 343. Okay, now if I come back and hit this, now you see this, the instance has changed. It was the previous instance was something with 5F20, but now the instance has changed. So each time you execute, that will generate a different instance. So now you can see that datetime created for that object, it is 3:45:36 seconds UTC, and this was 3:43. So we executed after uh, minutes. Yeah, after 2 minutes we executed that. So each and every instance will be different. Each execution will have a different instance. So that's the takeaway for us to learn from this. So always we'll hit this, and from it, it will give us the status query get URI and send event post URI, terminate post URI, purge history delete, and restart. So we can do multiple things. So as this is the starting session, we'll be focusing on this one, and you can see that the instance ID and all the things. How does this durable function know that where till what place it has executed, how to come back, everything will be stored in this one. So if I come into this instance name, you can see that timestamp. Let's format. So you see this F 5F20. That's the instance. So it has got the complete track for that particular instance. What was the input it has received, and what is the orchestrator it has called, and this execution ID completed. I mean, what output we have sent. So here there was an error in one instance. We'll create all these things. So we have the complete thing. So we need to understand that the storage, there is a table known as test hub name instances. It stores all the instances. It will track everything what happened, and also test hub name history. So in this we can again I will um, sort by this. So again, it will have this what happened for each of those instance ID. You can see this, all the execution, what all the things it started, when did it start this orchestrated, when this is completed the task or an activity, everything will be here in this table. And you will have this control queues. So this will give the indication to other activity functions when they should start the messages and other things, because they have to be triggered. And close all. And also here there is blob, where you will have the test hub name leases. Here you can see that. I mean, I'm just giving you extra information so that you know what is happening under the hood. But please do not touch anything. Just for us to understand like what is happening, I'm just coming here and I'm giving you this extra information. And what we can do is I can stop this. Again, I'll execute. We'll be here playing around this for next 5 to 10 minutes. 1 hour should be good enough for us to go ahead and uh, start working on this one, right? So as you know, this is the host JSON where we can change the test hub name, and this we know is the host JSON, because in the previous sessions when we were discussing, we discussed about triggers, multiple bindings, input bindings, output binding, triggers, and function chaining. We discussed a lot of those things. Okay, now we are doing something different. We'll see one more scenario before we go into that. Let's assume I'm throwing. We'll recreate it, but I just want to show this one. If I want to throw some error, and then we will start discussing what is the motivation, why do we need durable function. Okay, so let's give us an opportunity, and let me hit this, and it's executing all these things. And just chill. This is the exception which has been thrown. So I can click on this activity and get this results. Now you can see that I sent this input, but the output you can see, but the output you can see that success is false, unable to process. Please speak to the administrator, and the data object is null because we are throwing error. So this is one of the scenarios. Like, why do we need Azure durable functions? Oh, sorry, why do we need durable functions? Let's get spend some time on theory. Did I close it? What? Ah, okay, I'm sorry. I was in the same. So you can see this. We'll start with this durable functions. Is an extension and lets you write stateful functions in a serverless compute. Okay, what does that mean? So why do we need this durable function? So let's assume that we can do a similar thing We did it. So we dropped a message in the queue, then it took it and wrote it to a blob, and then we took it the output and we wrote it to a table storage. So in each of these, it was a binding and a trigger which was acting to create the function chaining. So that means when I create an HTTP function and hit it, so it used to drop a message in the queue, and another function which gets triggered based on the item inside queue, it picks it up, writes it to the blob storage. Another function which waits, and its trigger point is if someone writes a file into this blob, I'm going to pick it up and process it, and it drops it here. This we did it in previous sessions, and it is there. It is there. I want to stick to this one, but we did it quite two times. We did that. Okay. So now in this pattern, okay, even though I'm showing the durable function, but just focus on this image. Don't focus on this function chaining. We come back to that one. So imagine a scenario if this function 2 failed in the previous instance, when we have individual stateless function, we don't know what happened to uh, uh, that particular transaction. I'm calling it as transaction for me because I'm lacking of a word, so I'm using that transaction. Let's assume a scenario that you have uploaded your avatar to a site, and that has to be processed automatically. So the first thing is it gets uploaded from that web server to a blob storage. That is one Azure function. Let's assume this is doing. It gets an location where this has been stored. There will be a temporary blob, and it gets a location. So this function will picks up the avatar full picture from that and puts into some storage, and the next function picks it up, and that function goes and checks the dimension, background, foreground, and is your features pretty clear, like are you showing your eyes or are you closing your eyes, and they will reject that. So that will approve or reject, and then next one, if it is approved, it will store it to the next location, and next Azure function picks it up. It creates a thumbnail image, and then it gives the control to the next one. This guy will go and create a grayscale. So let's assume this is a workflow. In this workflow, if any of this Azure function fails, how do you track it? How do you know that what happened? So let's assume out of 100 files which got uploaded, 30 files got failed. So there will be partial images which will be left over there. Let's assume it is failing after creating the thumbnail. So you pick it up from the temporary location, put it in the permanent blob storage, then you take it and create the thumbnail. After that, it has to create the grayscale image. Let's assume it failed in between that. So first step, you copy it to the permanent location and you created a thumbnail. And before creating the grayscale, it failed. So totally 30 fails. Failure means there are 60 images lying dead, which will be non-trackable. We can't track it. So for that, in Azure Durable Functions, these will overcome those kind of issues. Okay, so that's one of the motivation factor. Why do you create? So we will have this orchestrator where we can define the complex workflow and we can go over the logic. Okay, right now the durable functions are supported C sharp, JavaScript, Python, F sharp, and PowerShell. So these are the things. So application patterns is function chaining. That's what we discussed. And sometimes what will happen is, let's assume that we have to create uh, the three things. Like we have to um, something related to heavy processing. We have to call multiple functions and consolidate all those functions in one place. So function one gets triggered, and it will trigger set of functions, and once the output from these three gets consolidated, it gives it to the third function. This is fan out, fan in. So we have to call multiple functions, then wait for finish. Okay, so you can see that we'll consolidate all, put that into the parallel tasks, and then we will call this parallel task, and we'll get output, we'll pass it. So other one is async HTTP APIs, where there is a heavy processing, and once this heavy processing is done, we'll get the status from here, what happened to this one. So you can see that. And here you can see this is create the auxiliary function. We saw that it creates multiple URLs. We'll create that. And sometimes a polling mechanism. You have to do the polling mechanism. And sometimes because of the human interaction, you have to wait for 1 hour if you don't have auto approval based on the business rules. If a customer is trying to buy something and you are waiting for an approval from a manager, and if the manager doesn't approve it in next 5 minutes, it should auto approve and convert that into sale. So something of that kind. So time bound, if approval doesn't come, escalate or go ahead and approve that and auto approve and go and do the sale. Okay, something of that kind. And couple of function types which we will be focusing is uh, orchestrator function and activity function. This entity function and entity function and client functions are the one which we are not going to discuss today, but we will focus on this orchestrator function and activity function. So this orchestrator function is the one which is the man of the house, which keeps track of how many Azure functions has activity functions has been called, and what is the state before calling and what is the state after calling, and it will checkpoint whenever we do async awaits, and again it knows that where did we stop and where should we restart this Azure function. We'll see that in a moment. And activity function is a basic unit of work. This is the guy who's going to execute this thing. Okay. Now coming back to this task hub. Okay. The task hub is a container. We have seen that. That's a storage. So in that we will use a lot of things. Just now we have seen all those things, isn't it? Here in this storage. So we saw that tables and queues and the blob containers. These are specifically for the lease, and this is for the control messages. That means we should go and tell that, hey, go, you start from here, you start from here for those. And this is the number of instance names, what all those instance name, what happened in that entire workflow, and what happened within that. This is, if you see here, there is only one row. This will give you a full picture. But here, for that one record, how many calls has been made? You can see that we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around 12 messages. Oh, no, somewhere around 15 messages are there here. So it tracks each and everything. It tracks what is the event ID, whether the orchestrator has started, whether the task has been scheduled, execution started or execution task completed. Everything it tracks it. We'll see this everything, what is happening inside the durable function. So that is what the technical term for that is task hubs. So the task hub name will be this, and if you want we can change the task hub name. So right now whatever is there, I'm not changing the test hub. That's the task hub. I'm not changing it. I'm using the same. Okay, now let's explore the durable orchestrator function. So let's go step by step. So there is something known as orchestration identity, and whatever we spoke about the reliability and this, we can have the sub orchestration and something we instead of using this thread.sleep and task.delay, there are other timers which we need to use, and how it does the error handling and calling HTTP and passing multiple parameters. Everything we'll see that. And instead of using these things, the suggested method is to use this current UTC from the context, current UTC date time. And I'm sorry. Okay. So that's the one which is suggested. and sends and wait. This is the other one. If we want approval, and the events also we can send it. How does this comes and hits it? That's what is very important. We'll come and we will redo this everything from scratch. Okay. So let's go ahead and start this. I'll park it aside, and this we have already seen it. So some of the pieces I will reuse it, folks, and some of the pieces I will reuse from here, and some I will recreate it. So let's come back to this, and that's the source. And what I will create is I will create source v1. While going, we will learn many things. Okay, so uh, that I'll take it. And we'll take these two libraries. I'm not going to include that, but we'll include it little later. Okay, that's done. And another thing is I need the name. Okay, we are good. So let me go and open the project or solution. Let me go to source v1 and I'll open this. So that's the one which is loaded. We'll create. I will remove this and let's see what is the properties of this. And right mouse click on this and go to, sorry, I need to go to the, okay, cool. That's coming to the source v1 location. I just want to ensure that we are going to the proper location. So everything is this one, .NET 6, folks. These two libraries are .NET 6. We already seen that. So let's keep our focus to uh, Azure Durable Function. So I'm starting this one. I want to select Azure Functions and I'll click on Next. And let's name this Azure Function and let's go and place it in source v1. That's cool. So it's going to the same location. I click on create. So when I click on create, so it is asking, we know that what all the types we have: empty, queue triggered, HTTP triggered with open API blob, lot of things are there. Okay, Kafka output, RabbitMQ, SignalR, different things are there. Our focus is durable function for today, so we'll select that. So that is here. Let's close all of those things. Let's come back to this. Somewhere this guy was mentioning about the task hubs. We can take little risk now. Durable extensions. We can take little risk because I already have a task hub. Now we can risk this. Uh, I'm taking risk in the live session. Okay, TK, that should be fine. We'll take that. Where is that? Extension. Now, what is that? Explore. That is host.json as a version 2 extension, durable task hub name. Okay, that we can put it here. And if it is failing, we'll know that. At least I know that I can't do it. Okay, let's keep it as it is. So first thing is we'll learn step by step. We'll understand how things are working, and we'll take it from there. So close all. So let's understand what is available in this. Here we will have multiple things. We will have the starter function, and we will have the orchestrator function, and we will have the activity function, and the task hubs we discussed. So the starter function is the one which we will come and hit this guy first. So that starter function is the one which will be hit by the HTTP trigger. That does not mean that we have to hit this only by the HTTP trigger. We can create another starter function which can be queue based or some other trigger based. It's not mandatory that it should always be HTTP trigger. We can have some other trigger also. But for this example, we are taking HTTP trigger as a starter function. We will change the face of this in next 5 to 10 minutes, but please hold on for a few minutes. And this is the one which it has got a durable client and durable orchestration client. That's the starter. So using the starter, we'll start a async, and we are invoking the function one. What is this function one? We are going to change the names and everything, guys. That is, we are calling the orchestrator function. We are calling the orchestrator function. The starter is going to call the orchestrator function. And what is the next parameter of this? The next parameter of this is the instance ID. If you don't create any instance ID, and that will create automatically. Now you know the importance or prominence of an instance ID. You saw that? The important of this is when you don't pass anything uh, into this parameter, when you pass it as a null, so that's when it goes and creates it auto generates the instance ID. Okay, when we pass null into that, so that's when it creates an instance ID. And if you want to pass any parameters into that, that will be the third parameter. So if you come and see that here, you can directly pass function name and input, and you can pass the function name, orchestrator function name, instance ID and input, or you can pass orchestrator function name and instance ID. If it is null, it auto generates. That's what we have seen. Let's keep it null. So it's going to call the orchestrator function. Okay, so now what will happen is the control will come to this here, the orchestrator function. The control will come to this orchestrator function, and let's see that how it will happen. So there is something known as event source. Event sourcing. So in this event sourcing pattern, so what it does is it stores like till what position or till what part I've executed this and from where I should start. So it will have the entire state of that kind. So something similar to this event sourcing we are going to see now in next 1-2 minutes, right? So then in this orchestrator function, there is a very important information, that is the limitations. We need to understand there are few limitations in this one. We have to ensure that we are keeping the constraints, whatever the constraints are there, this one. It's a very good thing which we have to understand before we write. So using deterministic API. So here date and timers. So if you want to use date time, we have to use the current UTC date time property. If not, what will happen is, as I mentioned, event sourcing. So the durable function does not mean that if I call function activity function 1 and activity function 2, activity function 3, once it calls the activity function 1, again it comes to the activity function 1 only, because it calls a function, then it goes to the sleep, then once the function is called, done, it wakes up and it knows that, okay, what all the function I have called, okay, I've completed function 1, now I need to call function 2, again it does. So it maintains all the state and everything. And when you want to use GUIDs and other things, please do not create it inside the orchestrator function. Create it in the starter function and pass it as part of the DTO. Okay, all the random numbers, because what happens is every time it generates it re-executes, isn't it? All the function it re-executes. So that's the reason. So these are some of the things which are there. Please go through. I mean, if we start discussing this, we'll miss our bus. So let me come back here. I'll practically show what does that means. Let's go and get this guy logger. One quick minute. We're going to change everything, folks. We'll learn bits and pieces here and there. Okay, then all I do is I will start log information, invoking, invoking activity function for. Okay, and then I'll come back and I'll execute this again. We are not going to use this, guys. I'm just letting you know. We will create our own weather utility, but as of now, to to understand some of the fundamental things, let's spend some time, decent time to uh, understand that. Let's come here. Let me execute this. Okay, the build has started. The build is succeed. While it is happening, I'll have a glass of water. I'm calling this. See, the control has come here. I will do continue. So it executes the function one. Again, it comes to the starting. The proof is that somewhere it should write invoking activity function for Tokyo. Now this function has been completed. You see that. So the other proof what we can do is we can come back to this one and let me do a refresh. Let me do a refresh and come back to the table. Here you see this. Now it is that the name we have given? Oh God. It's bad on my part. Apologize, guys. Shit. I'm sorry for that. It's my mistake. I blindly copy pasted. So just for us to differentiate, we have created this name. So now if I go to that task hub history, oh, sorry, this one, my task hub history, you can see this. It started the orchestrator and it started one activity function and it completed one activity function. Now, again, the control has come back to starting of this orchestrator. Now, if I click on continue, it goes and executes the second function. It goes and executes the second function. But if you come and see the log here, again, it's saying, even though it didn't execute the function, but still it writes invoking activity log function for Tokyo and invoking for Seattle. Now we can come back and check this history. So you'll have more number of rows. See that? And also you can see the here the controls, the messages. I mean, it is very tough if we go and keep it the debug points over here, but just let's understand at least to the maximum level we want to understand. You can see this. This is used for log and the lease and other things. But let's focus on this piece, folks. And we know that the control messages is to trigger another function. So now coming back to this, if I execute it again, now it executes for the third time. And again, it comes here. Now the log, whatever is here, you're seeing different messages. So these are some of the constraints which we have to be very, very careful before we deciding what has to be done. So we'll do that. We'll fix all these issues. Now after executing, it has executed everything. We can come and click on this runtime. status check, and it has given, because we didn't send any input. We didn't send any input. It has executed for these three, but there are a lot of issues here. So let's start overcoming one by one. Slowly we'll overcome this. Okay. So let me go here and let's stop this one. So the first thing what we can do is I will move this here so that it will be easy for me to copy the code and paste it. So the first thing in that kind of scenario, what we can do is if you go to that orchestrator function, there is something known as this one. There's something known as create replace save logger. So that means have to start with this. It replay save logger. Now let's re-execute this and let's see that. Let it start. Okay, that's cool. It has started. Now let's go and do a replay. We are hitting this starter function. So it has come in here. So now this time the log, whatever the ilogger which has been injected here, it has created the safe logger, replay safe. That means we know that it replays. Okay. So someone can ask, hey, Swamy, is this true that it is really replaying? So that's good question. Why don't we do a watch on that and find out ourselves whether it is truly replaying or it's like a churn. Let's try that. So come in here and get into this, and here you're getting a lot of information. So what is this config, and what is this execution ID? What is the function name? History 2, what is the hub name? And is replaying is false because this is the first time it is coming in here. So let me execute this, continue. So it executes that first function, first activity function. So here you can see this, the history count is 6. So now if I go back to this table, if I go back to this table and refresh this table. So for the current uh, GUID to instance ID BDE0, for this BDE0 come back based on the time. How many things are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think 6 it has to write, but it is exactly matching with here. What should be the history count? Those many rows, because we are putting this debugger, some delay might happen, but net understand the concept, what is happening as part of the event sourcing or internals versus what we are seeing here. So now the replay is true. And we saw that once it told invoking activity function for Tokyo. We've seen that. Now we are executing it. Now let it execute and come back. Now the count is 10. Let's go back here and do a refresh. Now you see that the count has increased. So now let's come back to the logs. We see this invoking activity function for Tokyo, and you're not seeing that Tokyo again because the logger we created replay safe. Now we are saying that invoking activity function Seattle, but we are not seeing the duplicate messages. That means now it has created the safe logger here. It has created the safe logger. Now I create continue. Now here there are 14 and is replaying is again true. And now I click on continue. That's done. Now I can come in here and check this output. It creates this output. Now let's go and analyze this. Now let's go and analyze this. So you're seeing this invoking activity for Tokyo, and then invoking activity function for Seattle, invoking activity function for London. So no other logs. That's pretty safe. So this time we'll not put any loggers. We'll close this. I will disable the safe logger and let's go and re-execute. Now we'll see that how much of duplication it has got. So let's come back over here. Let me close all these things. It's creating confusion. So because we don't have any loggers, so safe loggers, we didn't put anything. You're seeing that it logs again and again. Here it says that Tokyo, Tokyo, Seattle, Tokyo, Seattle, London, and final Tokyo, Seattle, London. So a lot of duplicate loggings are happening if you don't create the safe logger. So the first tip is you can log, but always create a safe logger, right? So that's the one good tip. So let me, oh God, why did I use that now? Let's call it as weather utility task hub. Sounds good. Okay, let's keep that. So other best practice, it's not a best practice or the way you organize, whatever works good for your project as solution, that's a best practice without rework and maintenance. If someone writes the code and others are very scared to go and update, um, that's a pretty dangerous thing. So let's start with the starter function. How do we change this one? So it is HTTP request message and we are sending HTTP response. Let's see the version. The function, Azure function version is v4, the latest one, and the framework is .NET 6. That's pretty cool. And let's go and do manage NuGet package. There's, there's an upgraded version of this. Let's update that. I want to use all the latest thing. That's cool. So we'll go step by step. Okay, so that's there. So let's fix one by one. What we will do is I will steal the names from here. I'm calling it as HTTP functions. Come back over here. I call this as I'm creating a new class calling it as HTTP functions. And let me make this public. That's a public class. And move the starter function. Whatever is the starter function, I'll cut this from here and put it into this one. Okay. So yeah, let's fix one by one. It's not a problem. That web jobs and HTTP response and authorization level and iDurable client and iLogger. iLogger. Okay, everything is here. So we have this. Um, we didn't like the way this is being called. So what we will do is we will call as weather utility starter function. So that way, we will know that what is this function. Instead of HTTP start, I will use this weather utility starter, and I'll take this and exclude this, and I'll say that name of. So that way, what will happen is if at all this name changes, we will also change. It will also change here. Okay. And let's build this. We'll do step by step. One by one, we will modify this. Okay, let's ensure that this is compiling properly. It is rebuilding also. Every now and then we'll execute it. We still have 30 minutes time. We'll learn very fast. We'll not put any debugger because we understood a lot of internals, folks. So let's go. Don't say this. Let's check that. Is it giving output? It is giving output. That's perfect. So let's keep it that way. So we did little bit of improvement, right? So let's do rest of the improvement. Let's move into different things. And the way the template or the variables it is there is little bit different from the regular Azure functions. How do you know that? Let's create Go and click on new project. When you click on new project and I want to take an Azure function, I'll select that and I call it as a function F1. Let me take the HTTP trigger. It's not a durable function, and go ahead and create this one. And when I come into this Azure function here, function F1, you see that it has got task of I action result and HTTP request. So let's change those two here, right? So here what we will do is, what is this? Uh, that's of I action result. And that's of I action result. And the next one is the HTTP request. Next one is HTTP request. Okay. So let's get this straight. Perfect. So now that we understood that, looks like this template, whatever it is getting, is having the previous reference. But if you see this as runtime 4 and .NET 6, but this regular Azure Functions template has been updated, it is accepting. But to be in sync with that, I am using it. No other reason. So let me delete that. I don't need it because we are converting. So just to showcase what is the difference, I had to create it. Now let me come back over here. So that HTTP function, we are done. Let me take this, analyze, clean up. Okay, so anywhere the spacings and other things which are missing, that will automatically take care if I do that. So something if I'm doing like this, okay. And if we need, do we have anything like if I take using system, so we are not using anything from the system. Let's assume like this formats and unused usings are there. So what you can do it either there. This is for that particular document. See that the system using has been removed as well as this formatting has been fixed. So please use this tool, either this or you can do analyze and code cleanup and run this. That does an entire solution. So always what is needed, formatting, everything will be fixed with this one. So that's one tip. Chalo. After that, what we will do is we will put this orchestrator function into separate thing. We call it as an orchestrator function. We'll go ahead and create this orchestrator function. And then I will go and click add a new class. Let me call this class an orchestrator function. And let's come back to this. Where is our orchestrator? This guy is here. Let's come and take this guy out of the equation and drop it here. Right. So again, quickly remove all the squigglies and this logger. Perfect. All the squigglies are gone. Now let's name weather utility orchestrator. So now you know that weather utility starter is a HTTP function and orchestrator we are calling it as weather utility orchestrator. So give the names which is instead of run orchestrator and those kind of things. If you use these kind of names, it will be easy for you to understand which one you are hitting. So now we are using name of. If we change here, it will rename that one. If you why we are using this name of is if I go and some other developer he came and he didn't like that. He said that what is this name? And he say that whether V1 utility. You see that? I'm changing here, it is changing there, right? So that's the advantage instead of using the magical strings. Okay. So instead of using the magical strings, it will be easy if we go ahead with these kind of names. So that being said, what is left out is we have the HTTP function, orchestrator function, and the final thing which has been left out is the activity functions. So let's come and check this activity functions. We can directly rename this guy to activity functions. Let's come in here. This is activity functions. I will delete this. I will delete this and we will start working on this one now. So rebuild. Let me rebuild. And we have included all these things. That's pretty cool. So let's start with the HTTP function. Right now, the HTTP function is supporting two things, get and post. I don't want get, I want post. So how do you send that post? So let's build this step by step. So if I come to that HTTP function, you will see that we can get this, retrieve the DTO. So let's retrieve the DTO and convert into this. These are the two steps. Let me come in here and paste it. Okay, let's get this stream reader. This and weather request DTO. Let's add the reference to that project. So that's done. And here we need to call the orchestrator function. So what is the name of the orchestrator function? The name of the orchestrator function is weather utility orchestrator. It's not function one. So now we are building the solution. Okay. So as if you see that when we don't pass anything, that's when it generates it. And this is what it gives the set of URLs, right? So now when we call the starter function, it retrieves this out request from the body and invokes this one. So the next thing is we need to pass it here. We'll do that in a moment. Let's come and check the orchestrator function here. So the orchestrator function, we are getting this context here, right? And it is calling these activity function. So first, let's fix this. How do you get the input from the starter function? How do you pass it to the orchestrator? So let's chew the cake piece by piece. So this is what we bought it here, and we need to pass it to the orchestrator function. So let's come and check this out. Hello, is my voice audible? Anyone, can you do thumbs up or anyone?
Yes, Swamy, it's
Okay,
audible.
okay. Yeah, okay, thanks. Because there was a network blip. I had to switch from 5G to 2G.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there was a small blip. Okay, that's cool. Let's go. This also we discussed initially that when we are calling the starter function, we saw the three parameters. That's an instance ID, and the third thing is we can pass in the object which we are receiving. Okay, so now let me rebuild this. So that means we are passing this as the third parameter. That's what it expects. It expects either two or three parameters. That means all is well here. Now we need to come to the orchestrator function. So now when we come back to the orchestrator function, we have to strip off that from the we have to strip off that from this body. So what we will be doing is we will be bringing in these three pieces of data. Bring in these three pieces of data, and let's get this weather data from this entities. And come on, this one. Okay. Now I'm not going to use any of these things. Not going to use any of these things. And here we are going to send this response. Instead of list of strings, we are going to send this. We're going to send that, and with the response DTO. That's what we're going to send this. Right? So we are building the entire solution. That's good. Uh, okay. Okay. Lack of that one. That we are going to fix it anyway in next 1 minute. So let's execute this and see, are we still on track or did we blow off? Okay, all is well. So we removed this. Let's come back here. Let's come back here and let's put a debugger. I will minimize this so that we'll understand whether we are able to receive it or not. So just before sending it and just before spitting it out. Okay, let's come back to this one. Now let's go and hit this. The body, we are sending it here, Srivaru, and I'm hitting it. So see that the request data, it has come this one, the ID and this one. That's in the starter function. So there are multiple ways. This is one of the way. And here we are passing it. And once we pass it, when you get it to the orchestrator function, we do a context.getInput and we will typecast it to the weather DTO. So that's the weather DTO, weather request DTO. Okay. And weather response is default response. It says true, all is well, and the data will be null. Okay, let's execute it and let's get the status query and we'll check. Here you see that input previously it was null. Now it shows the input, and output it is telling that the success is true, all is well. Right now the data is not there because we are not at calling the utility function. Okay, so let me remove the static from here and we'll come back. Let's work out on that one step by step. So now let's first, oh God, these all things are pretty much clear. So now we need to start working on our activity functions. So let me come back to this activity function. So inside this activity function, we need to get the weather data. So the weather data is coming from the weather data surveys. And here you can see in this entire solution, except this one, nowhere we are using new to create any of these instances. We can see this. Nowhere there is new. Wherever there are new, it is either creating this throw exception. You can see this new of stream. Nowhere we are using our dependency using new, except this is the hard coded one. I told you this is a hard coded one. Nowhere we are using. So how do you do that? So we have to use the dependency injection. So how do you do dependency injection? Let's do it. Close all. I think I might need to have this. Let me check which one. Most probably, yep, Azure function extension. This is the one, if I'm not wrong. Also application insight. If I'm not wrong, it is line number 9. That's it. It was line number 9. So why don't I paste it and delete whatever is not needed? to save the time. Worker service, which we will add it little later. That is the one which is needed, and these two we already have. Um, so Control KD to organize. Shortcut Control KD. Uh, that has been added. And the next thing what we have to do is we need to create a startup class to do the dependency injection, right? We need to create a startup class, and it should start with the functions startup. And inside this configure method, we add it. So that's how we do it. So let me start with this. Uh, create, right mouse click, new, startup.cs. Okay, now I will grab this entire guy. We'll see that dependency injection, how it works in a minute, folks. There, don't worry, we'll remove every squiggly and we'll put it here. Okay, so now function startup, that's from the extension control dot, and weather data service, that's from the interfaces, and this is one service injection, and that's from this lib, reference the lib, that's from the service, and these are from the lib. Gone. Why, sir, what is your problem? There's this namespace. That's done. Let me do this. This is a nice tool, guys. I really love this. Seriously, I mean, you don't need to worry about that. Just come click this guy. It does the cleanup. Little bit of formatting and unused usings in one shot. Seriously, the tools are improving like anything. All these IDs competitively. I told this many times. Nowadays, this ID is becoming like a gated community. You see this AWS Explorer. I don't need to go to browser and log into AWS, or I don't need to go to the SQL server. I can log in from here and check whatever is there. And you have these tools. I mean, it's like becoming fantastic thing. Cool. That's a part. Here we have all the dependency. Okay. Now let's write our first utility function. Sorry, I'm sorry for that. First activity function. So what is the first activity function is, um, these things are tempting. I want to start with that activity function, but I want to give you another tip also. So now inside this activity function, we need to have this dependencies, isn't it? So we take that, all these dependencies, and bring in this one. So now how do you create the constructor? So I can do CTOR tab on that and then bring this guy, uh, paste it here, then come and delete this and come and weather data service equal to weather data service, this one. So to type this 6 to 7 dependencies, I have to have an extra breakfast and a fruit juice to get the energy. So now ID is giving us lot many options. Alt enter, generate constructor, and add null checks. Click on OK. You got a beautiful parameterized constructor without even sweating. Now you can cut down on the calories. Instead of having 4 bread slices, you can have 2 because we are saving energy here. Okay, jokes apart, the tools are nowadays very intelligent, and it's writing a better code than us. I mean, we would have taken care only till here, isn't it? We don't need to. We will not worry about whether the dependency is getting injected or not. If not, it throws some exception, like we have to go through 50, 60 lines of logs to find out what is missing, where it is missing. But here it clearly shows that argument null exception, the name of that service. Cool. Okay. Now, now what we are doing is inside this activity function, it got injected. Now the first step is what we are doing is we are saying that get the weather data, assuming that we are talking to external weather API or whatever it is, and we will go get the data. So let me come and paste that first function over here, and um, see this. I don't need to go and check what it is there. All I do is control dot enter, control dot enter. That's it. The rest everything it is taking care. This kind of thing which I used to see in Eclipse ID when I was working in Java. Anything missing it used to bring. So now it is it's similar to that. So let's do this, and 10 more minutes, guys. We will be done with this. Uh, Okay, perfect. So we have our get weather data utility function over here. So we have our dependency injection, we have our starter functions, and we have our orchestrator. In this orchestrator, we will write the workflow. Okay? And inside this activity functions, we will have set of activity functions and also all the dependencies we are injecting here. Let's come back to the orchestrator function, and let me do a try catch block. Right, the try catch block is here. Let's go grab that first line from this. We'll go grab this guy. We'll grab this. Just to be on a safer side, let's grab everything and we'll comment it there so that we can start simulating. We don't need to switch between two IDs to copy paste the code. I will comment this. So as and when we are going through the workflow, we will see that how the progress is happening. So we are calling get weather data, and so that way it is in a single shot we are doing everything. So we are logging the complete error, and we are saying this. Anything is missing? Nothing. So that's pretty cool. We will be done in next 10 minutes. Okay, so we are at the first step of our workflow. Did we create a safe logger? Yes, we did. That created a safe logger. I'm sorry, I need to have a glass of water. Okay, we are creating the safe logger. Sorry, and let's go and see this. And again, I'm not coming back to these things because we went deep into the weeds to find out why the blob storage is needed apart from whatever we learned in our two previous episodes. Now come on and execute this. So that executed this one. Here you can see that the object is there. We can pass any name, but I'm little sentimental, so I'm keeping that name. Okay. Now you see that step by step how we are progressing. We'll see that. So let's assume we called an external API source, and that API source is giving three pieces. What is the location? What is the temperature in Celsius? What is the humidity? It didn't give us temperature Fahrenheit and comfort index. It didn't give. So the first activity function, it is giving us the location, temperature in Celsius, and humidity. So now let's go to the second step of our workflow. The second step is we need to convert that temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So for that, let's assume that we need to call another external API. I mean, assuming that whether you're calling an external API or you're calling some Azure functions or some API, whatever it is, you're calling the database, Cosmos DB, MySQL, SQL Server, whatever it is. So it's taking anything which you're calling, but you're getting it. We are simulating a real-time scenario. Okay. So now what we are doing is in this, we are saying that uh, in this we are saying we are going to get this weather data that doesn't have the Fahrenheit temperature. So we will first complete in the orchestrator function. First we'll complete get the weather data, the location, Celsius, and the humidity. Now we have written another activity function which is going call the external source and get the Celsius to Fahrenheit temperature. So that's what we are doing. I would have written bad code, excuse me for that, but I'm unblocking this one, right? So here you can see this in this activity function. We how are we receiving the data? That is also you can see that here each of the activity function can have its own input. Like if you see this activity triggered, that activity is getting triggered and it receives name as an input. And here it receives weather data as input. That means let's assume that in the previous call, whatever the weather data which we received, it has got only Celsius. That weather data we are passing it. And again, it is spitting the weather data. But in the previous hypothetical scenario, whatever I told, let's assume you uploaded your image. So that's the first image, original image. And on top of that, we create the thumbnail. That's the second location. And then grayscale. So third location. So while spitting it out, you can give an object, response object, which will tell that where is the permanent location of your original photo, where is the thumbnail of your where is the thumbnail of your approved original photo, and where is the grayscale of your original photo. So these three URLs can come in different scenarios. In our scenario, we are working with the same object, the same data object or the data transfer object. We got it from the weather API, and then we are passing the same set of content to some other external services which will convert the Celsius to Fahrenheit and it is spitting it out. So that's the story. Let's execute this. Now see this. This is pretty easy, isn't it, to understand now? Instead of function one, function how it was previously, run orchestrator or whatever its name was. Now it clearly shows that, okay, weather utility starter, what is the endpoint? What other activity functions do you have? I'm sorry. Get Celsius to Fahrenheit, get weather data, weather utility orchestrator. It clearly shows that. I mean, no. So it all depends upon how do you name it. Let's go that. Let's come and click on this and hit this guy. And now let's come and see that. So from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Now that's the second service. So we came to the second step of our workflow. And what we will do is we will come back and let's do another activity function. This one will get the comfort index. We'll come to the activity function. It's getting the comfort index of that. Let's come back to the orchestrator. This is the workflow. That's the step 3 of our workflow. And let's execute this. Then we'll come and work on the error scenarios. Let's wait for a moment. It has come. Let me execute this. Let's check that. Now you see that you got Celsius. The second service or the second activity function is calculating the Fahrenheit to all the entire data, and the third is finding out the comfort index. And we can call another Azure function publish weather report, another hypothetical activity function. So this can drop it somewhere in the blob storage or put it in the Azure Cosmos DB or some other table and drop a message in the queue, and that queue can go ahead and trigger a trigger an signal R, and signal R can push this into the UI. So host number of options you have, isn't it? Now we calculated, we got the Celsius data, and the next service we are calculating the Fahrenheit and then comfort index. Now we got an entire data structure which has got the complete weather, and this we can write another activity function to store it into a Cosmos DB, or simple, I will drop it into the blob storage and take the location of the file and write another queue message, service bus queue or a Kafka or RabbitMQ, whatever it supports. I drop it to that. And once it drops some other function, which is outside the durable function, inside a bigger solution, that can take this message and invoke a Azure Signal R. And the Signal R will send the weather report to all the clients, maybe .NET client or a React or JavaScript client, any client, Angular. It can publish that report. Dynamically, they see the table getting more number of rows or the existing rows getting updated. That's a, this is a small solution. I'm speaking about a bigger solution. That being said, let's see the exception scenarios. Now you know that what workflow it has happened, how it is happening, how it is failing. I mean, you can dig deeper into this, isn't it? You can seriously get deeper into this and you can find out like till what state it executed. You don't need to, I mean, it gives us the clear cut information like what is happening, but just I'm giving you an extra tip. You can come in here and you can tell the story what happened here, what inputs we have received, isn't it? Here it's pretty clearly it is telling that what inputs it has received, what output it is spitting out of that. See, you have everything. All the things are here, so we can we don't need to come in here. The intention of creating the Azure Durable function that it is going to handle. Let's assume simulate one error where we are converting get Celsius to Fahrenheit. So let's go to this one, and just before returning I'm telling uh, where sum equal to 100 divided by 0. Oh God, these people are not allowing me to make that mistake. Okay, chalo. Where 0, I think this will catch this one also. In that case, we have to throw. Okay, good. We are able to fool it. So that is our second activity function in our workflow is failing. So I'll come back over here. Okay. Now click on this. See that? It says success false, unable to process the message. And if you come in here, see that? There's a lot of red things. It clearly shows that in this function, attempted to divide it by 0. So we are writing the error message. Always do it at the orchestrator level. Don't write it at multiple levels because handling exceptional handling at each layer will be a bit of cost. Let's assume even if it is taking 50 to 100 milliseconds. So add up in 2-3 layers. That's a huge amount. So please put it at the top layer. And here, see this? Here we are logging the original error message because if we are doing investigation, we need to know that what happened. But while giving we are not giving it, because sometimes it says that unable to connect it to so and so database with this username. So that itself is like a invitation to hackers, hey, come please hack me. Okay, so let's not do that. Jokes apart, that's being done. We can come to this Azure functions, and here also we'll have the starter function. We can deploy our latest, but I will show the one which I deployed last night. And I can go grab the function URL. It's over here, and come back to the postman here. But that object structure is little bit different. I'll show you. That is post body raw text by JSON. Well, today is 2/2/23. Now I'll send this 550 milliseconds. You can see that that object structure is a little bit different than the one which we have it here. So we converted that into a different object structure, but this you can simply deploy this there. Okay, and how do you deploy? It's pretty simple. Right mouse click on this durable function, publish. Azure. And here we have durable function, weather utility. This updated one. Let's publish. It's building it. It will not take much time. Now, apply the solution. Now, that's insane. I can go ahead and delete that. It's asking me to re-enter the credentials. I don't know why. Try that. Why do I need to re-enter the credentials? Hmm. Why it is asking all these things? Just a moment. 1 second. Not getting the message. I am not getting the message. Okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. 1 second. Just give me 1 minute. I need to key in the credentials. 1 second, guys. Let me key in the credentials. Okay, these messages are killing me. Approve UFA. And that is another message. Just give me 1 minute. 9, okay, 9 2. Okay, verify. Let me share my screen. Eh, Okay, that has come. The durable function, weather utility dev, the consumption type, next, and finish. I don't know why it doesn't store this once I give it. That's, ow, seriously? See the logs. Why it's not picking this up? I am really not sure why it is troubling me. We'll see that. But we deployed it last night and we tested it, everything. So uh, that's about this durable Azure function. So we went and learned about the module, uh, AZ Learn module, and we saw different patterns, application patterns in durable Azure function. And one of the Azure function is one of the application pattern was function chaining. We created a very specific solution, and we didn't do a hello world, but we did quite a few things. We learned about application, how do you do a dependency injection, and safe logger, error handling, and how do you pass the input, and how do you accept the DTOs, pass it from the starter function to the orchestrator function, and within the orchestrator function, how do you pass the inputs to different activity functions. So a lot of things which we have learned. So I hope you guys have enjoyed and learned something new. Uh, and any feedback about today's session content, whether it was good, bad, or ugly, positive or negative feedback, I would really appreciate it if you can post it in the chat. That will help me fine tune my next session. So the next session will be again a fully action packed episode, folks. So we'll purely create the Docker file, and we'll work on the Azure Container Registry and Azure Container Instance, everything through scripts, maybe the PowerShell scripts or AZ scripts. I don't know what it is, but we will be working. That will be the next AZ Learn module, which we'll be focusing on. Okay? So I got only one. So any other feedback? Shantanu, Manish, you told Shanmugam, Durga Prasad, Nachiket, Mr. Koshi. Uh, thanks, Mr. Koshi. And anyone else who has got uh, feedback, please feel free. Paid, how can I get it? Yeah, it's a free. MS Learning is free. The paid is only if you want to opt for classroom session. Okay, that's the one. But Mahesh, you can go through that MS Learn and get deep into that. And apart from that, there are logs, there are URLs to the external learning also. It is given there. So if you get into that MS Learn module, go step by step and appropriately wherever it is needed, they will give you the external links also. Okay. Now, see, this is a at least 1 year experience or hands-on do you have? You need to check that. If not, what you can do is you can slowly go by this MS Learn modules, do a hands-on, and there is labs for this. So try creating that and also follow all the uh, 12, 11 sessions plus today's is a 12 session, and upcoming there are 8 to 9 sessions are there. So follow this, follow the MS module, and learn from the external sources. Like MS module, they speak about the durable function. Then we have to come back to the Azure documentation to learn extra knowledge. Okay, and in the same MS Learn at the bottom, they have the practice session. So that is will cost $50 or something. I don't know. So once you prepare for this AZ-204, do not rush it. Once you prepare for 4 months or 6 months, whatever the time it is needed, you prepare. Once you feel that you're ready for that exam, that's when you go and buy that Microsoft's practice test, and you write that. It's there at the bottom of link. Press months, I don't remember exactly. So practice for 4 months to 4 to 6 months or whatever the time it is needed. If it needs 1 year, 1 year, no questions asked. You have to be thorough with thorough knowledge, learn, do practice, hands-on, and then do a practice test. Go and hit that certification. You will be through for sure. Chalo, thank you so much. Anything else? One final round. One final round. I'll call out names. Okay. Mailwanan, Divya Lok, Ejan Koshi, Kuljit. Kuljit, how did you like today's session? Manoj, Nachiket, Manish, Rakesh, Shanmugam, I think you already told. Durga Prasad, anything from your side? Any final words, feedback, or anything? Mailwanan, nice session. Thanks, Kuljit. Thanks, Kuljit. Cool then. Durga Prasad, perfect. Uh, Need more hands-on. Kuljit, all my sessions will be hands-on. You saw that I come with zero slides. Only hands-on. Still 9 more to come. Every session will be of the same action-packed hands-on sessions. We'll build some small. Okay. You can unmute and you can speak, Kuljit. No problem. Yeah, we have to. That's what I'm telling, that you guys have to do a hands-on, and I'll see how can I present that also, as we are planning to have 4 hours or 8 hours after completing this 20 sessions. That is like a quick summary of all the 2021 sessions which we did it. And like if you watch, you will know that how prepared you are, and how much learning you need to do. So you have to do all those hands-on before attempting the exam, because by doing the hands-on, you will learn something which might come in the exam. So, okay, all the very best, folks. So if there are no further queries, we can close this bridge. Thank you so much. Hope to see you guys full house in next episode.
Thank you, Swami, and thank you all for joining us today. Please do share your feedback about today's session. Thank you once again.
Have a safe day, folks.